Hello everyone, this is Christian Imazo from Nizona Corporation, and this is another installment of OEM Basics. Today I am going to talk about manufacturing, which is chapter 4 of this OEM Basics series. So, when we address manufacturing, we will be speaking about the following points. How does it work? What is the work philosophy? What are the steps? How long does it take? What are the quality standards? And what are the safety parameters that we apply? So, manufacturing is one of the key aspects of what we do here in Nizona Corporation. Nizona Corporation manufactures, develops, sells, and exports dietary supplements, beverages, manufactured and developed here in Japan, where our manufacturing base is. So, how does it work? Basically, as we discussed in previous chapters of this OEM Basics series, we first need to understand what are exactly your needs as a customers. When we understand our customer needs, we get to understand what is a product concept, what are the desired efficacy, ingredients, packaging, etc. Upon understanding these basics, we at Nizona will select the most suitable subcontractor within our network here in Japan, and the manufacturing will be engaged only to factories that meet those required product specifications and regulatory requirements. We'll be speaking a little bit about regulations today in this presentation when we speak about the quality standards. But when it comes to manufacturing, it matters a lot, not only the product specification but also the volumes that are applicable to your specific case. There are many manufacturing lines that are too big or too small for a particular volume size of a particular customer for a particular product. Therefore, it's not always as easy as it sounds, but that is our job. So what is the work philosophy? The work philosophy is basically what are the standards that we follow, not in terms of the product but in terms of thinking process. When it comes to that, safety always comes first, no matter what the cost is, no matter what the efficacy of the product is. Safety always have to come first. We never cut corners when it comes to safety for the sake of reducing cost. Number two, quality. Quality is not something that we can compromise here at Nizona Corporation, and in general, I should say, when it comes to the manufacturing philosophy of companies based in Japan, we have this pride in terms of what quality means and what quality stands for, and we are no exception in that particular aspect. Number three, efficacy. Efficacy within safety. Again, we go back to step number one, safety comes first. When it comes to efficacy, we need to work within the parameter that never using ingredients that are extremely abrasive or extremely aggressive, or they could be aggressive for the human body for the sake of achieving a particular health or aesthetic result. Again, safety comes first. We always use natural ingredients. We always use food grade ingredients, and we always use foods that are allowed and are permissive under our regulations here in Japan, which follow pretty much the international standards of other advanced countries such as the United States, European Union, and the World Health Organization and others. Now, number three, we will speak about manufacturing steps and the time that it takes. When it comes to manufacturing, we need to divide it in several steps. This slide that you are looking at right now assumes that we already have developed the product. So you can go back to the second part of this series when we speak about what development is to understand that process. Now, assuming that the product already has been developed and you have already placed an order for your product, the first step is printing the packaging materials, meaning the labels, the boxes, and the logistics cartons that will be used to ship the product to you to your country. That is usually a process that takes approximately 4 weeks. give or take, depending on the type of packaging that you are utilizing. There are some types of packaging that may take a little more, for example, composite foil or aluminum foil that we use to pack sachets or pouches, etc. That may take a little more depending on seasonal factors, but usually you have to look at 4 weeks. The second is the manufacturing itself. After all the ingredients and packaging materials have been collected, we will proceed to manufacturing. And that means filling the sticks or filling the bottles or tabletizing the tablets or encapsulating the capsules, the manufacturing process in and of itself. That is not a long process. It usually takes a few days or a week to complete. But we will talk in the next slide about what actually takes to reach to that level and the importance of having reserved orders. The following step after the manufacturing process has been completed is quality assurance. Quality assurance means the actual examination of the finished product and making sure that the product meets all the safety, quality, and product specification parameters. Once the product has passed all that, we issue a test report, which we call COA or Certificate of Analysis, and that test report includes an analysis result of the basic safety parameters that we check. We will discuss about that in one of the future slides of this presentation. That inspection takes about 1 day, or in some cases it may take a few days depending on the level of inspections or the quantity that you have ordered. And after the product has been released from inspection, is delivered to the port of export. Usually, this port is located in Kobe City or Osaka City, which is close to our home base. Thereafter, the logistics process will begin, which usually will take about a week or so, depending on which specific documents you will require for this process. When it comes to logistics and delivery, we'll have a separate chapter in this OEM Basics series. Now, how long does it take? This is a very common question when it comes to manufacturing. How long does it take? I have already explained in this slide that the actual manufacturing process takes a few days or 1 week, right? Like it's explained over here. However, there is a big difference between what a spot order is or a reserved order is. Always utilize the analogy of a restaurant. You can see there in this picture a very busy izakaya Japanese style restaurant when everybody's sitting out. Well, imagine if you show up in the restaurant and say, I want to have a meal. Unfortunately, in that situation, the chef will tell you, I'm sorry, Mr. or Mrs., the restaurant is full. You have to wait for your table. That is a spot order. If you go to a restaurant, especially a popular restaurant on a Friday or Saturday night, you will find that most restaurants are taken, and if you want to have a meal on the spot, you need to wait. To avoid that, what you do is to reserve your table maybe a week in advance or a couple of weeks in advance, depending on how popular the restaurant is or depending on the season, right? During summer holidays, restaurants are more full than otherwise, right? It works the same in factories. So if you place a spot order for your product, we are always happy to accept your order. That goes without saying. However, if our manufacturing lines are full making other products, it may take a little longer for us to accept your order. So therefore, we always recommend to make a reserve order, meaning give us an estimation of the quantities that you will need during a period of time, let's say 6 months or a year, and you can give us a pre-order. You do not need to pay for that. It's just an estimation. Let's say we call it a POP, a purchase order prognostication, and based on that, we will pre-book those production lines so that you can have your product delivered at the time that you need it. So please consider that as a very important aspect. And the second aspect in terms of the question, how long does it take, is a seasonal aspect. Same as in restaurants, December and January, end of the year is very busy. And in Japan, we have the May, summer, the spring holidays in May, and the August holidays in summer. During this season, there's usually a congestion pre-holiday and post-holiday. A congestion pre-holiday because everyone orders in advance, and a congestion post-holiday because of the backlog that the break has created. And the same happens with logistics. It's harder to book shipping uh, vessels when the season is high. Therefore, you have to consider if you will need stocks, inventory for December. We usually recommend you to place your order a little bit before in advance, preferably around September. That is the ideal situation so that the manufacturing can be done on time, and then the shipping can happen on time as well, because shipping can take anywhere between 2, 4, or 6 weeks depending on your country location. The rest are standard seasons, right? Standard season is anywhere that is not December, January, May, or August. Standard season are usually normal production timing, but sometimes it happens that we receive big orders, or we have a sudden spike of orders from other customers, and our business production lines get full. In that kind of situation, we need to explain to you that the production may take a little longer. That is why it's extremely important that you tell us or give us an estimation of what when your order will be placed. Now, fifth point is regarding quality standards. Well, the quality standards that we follow for making our products are primarily pharmaceutical grade, GMP. GMP means good manufacturing practices. The GMP guidelines are regulated in Japan by the Pharmaceutical Affairs Act. This law sets the manufacturing and quality and safety standards for medicines and other therapeutical products, and is a very detailed and strict law that regulates all the activities of factories that produce this kind of product. There's also a food grade GMP. Food grade GMP is the similar standards that apply to food products. And the third one that I highlight in this slide is HACCP, the meaning the hazardous certification standards to avoid hazardous or to eliminate hazardous sources of dangerous or, safety situations during production. These standards are actually obligatory in Japan since the year 2020, if I'm not mistaken. At this moment, at the time I'm filming this video, in July 2024, these HACCP standards are obligatory for all food operators in Japan. Therefore, it's almost like a default standard in food production. Finally, we have other standards like the food safety certification standards 2012, ISO, etc. These ones are also applicable to food production, but are not as common as the GMP standards that I explained on the top of this slide. Now, this slide is an image of how the food grade GMP certificate and the pharmaceutical grade GMP certificate looks like. You will see that both certificates are written in English, but the format of both certificates are different. Depending on the country, these certificates may raise questions from regulatory authorities. So therefore, we always recommend you to, if you will need to disclose these kind of certificates to your regulatory authorities, to ask us for a template of the certificate so that you can show it and make sure that the documents will be acceptable, because every country has obviously different standards and different interpretation of what a certificate looks like. Now, this is an important note when it comes to filing documents or the certification process. The products that we make here in Nizona Corporation are not medicines. Even though I was speaking to you about pharmaceutical grade GMP as a quality standard that we follow, the product itself is not a medicine. Is if what we make here at Nizona Corporation is food supplements that are manufactured under pharmaceutical grade conditions. But the product itself is a dietary supplement or a food supplement in general. Yeah. So therefore, when you file your product, and we'll have a different presentation when it comes to regulations and logistics. But here, I will only say that if you are going to file an application to import our product into your country, you always should place the application as a food or a dietary supplement and never as medicine, because that's not the qualification of our products. Now, what are the safety parameters? This is a very important question because safety comes first. That is what I've been saying all throughout this presentation. The safety parameters, I will divide it in three steps. The pre-inspection, and these parameters are all set by the Japan Pharmaceutical Affairs Act and the Food Sanitation Law of Japan. So these safety parameters apply on a pre-level, pre-manufacturing level, which is every ingredient that we utilize in the product needs to undergo safety inspection. And this inspection is performed through the evaluation of all the documentation, official documentation that comes along with every single ingredient that we utilize. Number two is the production tests. During production, there is a set timing for inspecting different parameters during production, such as bacteriological parameters and the pH, meaning the level of acidity in the product, which applies especially for liquid products. Impurities, making sure that there's no foreign elements during production. Heavy metal analysis to make sure that no heavy metals in any of the ingredients that we utilize, and analysis based on other safety laws, as I mentioned before, Japan Food Sanitation Law, or other regulations applicable to the specific ingredient. Finally, once the product has been completed, once the product is a finished product, we need to issue a test analysis, as I explained in previous slide. This test analysis requires the inspection of certain safety parameters, in particular bacteriological, physical, to make sure that the product is safe for human consumption. Another inspection that we utilize and that we do is the nutritional inspection. And this apply basically not for safety reasons, but for, let's say, labeling purposes. Because when you label a product, you need to display the amount of calories or proteins or fats or sugar that are included in the product. And this detail will depend primarily on your labeling regulations that apply in your country. Here in Japan, food products are required to display calories, meaning the energy, the protein, the fat, the carbohydrates, and the sodium. Those are the five technical nutritional parameters that we are obligated to display in a label, in addition to other allergen factors and ingredient list, etc., and the origin of certain ingredients. These labeling requirements will differ from country to country. Therefore, when it comes to nutritional inspection, you have to let us know specifically what nutritional analysis is required in your country so that we can undertake the nutritional analysis. You can also undertake the nutritional analysis in your own country, in your own trusted lab, uh, and we will supply to you the sample required for that. Therefore, When it comes to analysis and tests, we perform analysis and tests based on our own domestic Japan regulatory requirements. However, if you require additional tests, we can perform them as well. But please note that some extra cost and some extra time may apply depending on the case and depending on the level of detail that you require in your analysis. Now, as an example, just as a visual for you to see how these documents look like, a nutritional facts analysis will look something like what on the left side, where we display the amount of energy, protein, lipids, carbohydrates, etc., etc. And on the right side, you can see a certificate of analysis or a test analysis of a finished product where we analyze some physical aspects of the product and some safety parameters of the product that are applicable as a minimum requirement of the Japanese Food Safety Act. Other details are available upon requirement, so please let us know. Now, basically, during the whole production process, um, we will continue reporting to you what's going on. We will let you know transparently the status of the manufacturing of your product, giving you a realistic timeline on when the products are going to be ready, of when the product can be shipped, and all the logistics timelines that I will discuss in a different chapter. One important factor that I need to highlight is that the we prefer to under promise and under promise and over deliver than anything else. We will always give you an honest and realistic timeline so that you can plan your sales and inventory accordingly. But for that, we need to work together. We need to understand your timeline. We need to understand your future inventory needs as much as you can so that we can work together and make sure that you do not run out of stock. So basically, this is the end of the chapter 4 of the OEM basics discussion, and I hope it was useful and you could make good reference of it. Let's bring your product from concept to reality together, and thank you very much for your attention and have a great day ahead.